Hello. Hi. I am Virginia Nelson. I am a USA Today bestselling author of a lot of titles, some of which include The Penthouse Prince, which is currently available as a video game on Chapters Interactive. It will very shortly be available on Radish, as well as being, of course, available in book, ebook, print ebook, and in a few different languages, including German and I think Spanish. But anyway, I am here today to celebrate my great friend Siobhan's 10th anniversary as an author, and that is a huge accomplishment, so just massive kudos again to Siobhan, because most small businesses don't last 5 years. So realistically, the fact that you have been doing this for 10 years, you should just totally pat yourself on your back, and so proud of you. So, without further ado, I decided that what I was going to be reading and sharing with you guys today was an excerpt from a book that's not out yet. We are currently working on the next Flip the Trope anthology, and it's going to be Flip the Trope Spring Fling. And my title, I'll give you guys a little sneak peek. Oop, let me turn the brightness down. Sorry. Okay. Is got a very long title and a very handsome man. I'll see if I can insert a picture someplace for you guys to see, but is That Moment When He Agreed to Be Her Rugged Billionaire Fake Fiancé. And what I wanted to do was take the billionaire fake fiancé trope and play with that. Because there are so often where, the woman finds the man and he needs a fake fiancé. I literally did that in Penthouse Prince. I don't know if any of you have read Camden James, but he is a billionaire and he hires one of his underlings, one of his employees. Oh, by the way, wearing my crown for book talk. So it is a regular crown that fell into my melted wax. So that's the thing that happened. But anyway, Camden James, Jeannie Long, he hires her to be his fake fiancé. She gets out of it a bunch of money, a new car, and she gets to live in a penthouse. And that whole story is literally built on that trope, because I love that trope. But I thought, what if we flip that? Because there's a lot of questions that get asked in a fake romance kind of story. Some of the questions that I always have are, why do they have to kiss? You've gone to lots of weddings in your life, and you've brought dates to probably at least a few of them. How often do people go, we don't believe you guys are really together. Kiss for us. How often does that happen to you in real life? And if it happened to you in real life, wouldn't your response be like, I've got to prove nothing to you? Because all you have to do to have a fake relationship is say, we are in a relationship. And if the other person says, yes, we are in this relationship, most people will believe you. So how come it's always kiss for us, where they have to have massive PDA? So at one point in time, my hero in this story literally calls that one out to give you a for instance of some of the things that I called out. And he's like, why would we have to do that? What kind of weird PDA family do you have that you have to prove? So yeah, that is what this story is about. The blurb, I'll read you the blurb to start with. Elise Gardner has worked for Silas Harper for a decade. By the way, there will be a second story to the series because it turns out this is a series. And the other book will come out later this year, but the first story, this one, is coming out in the Flip the Trope. So, Elise Gardner's worked for Silas Harper for a decade. In that time, she saved his handsome behind a time or two, and he owes her one. Big time. She intends to collect when her ex returns to town, and every romance novel she's ever read claims faking a relationship with a sexy billionaire is the recipe for true love. But her ex, the proverbial boy next door, might have other plans, and they don't include Elise in the arms of any man that isn't him. So, I think you can see where I'm going with this. Oh, another fake romance trope that I called out. I just remembered it when I was reading this. What was it? Whenever they're planning their whole faked relationship, they're having the conversation of, we're going to do this thing. Another conversation thing that comes up is she points out the fact that they always fall in love with the person that they're faking the relationship with. Just a given part of the trope is if you're faking this relationship, the pretend ends up being just a little more real. What if it doesn't? That was another question I asked, kind of in this question story. So, anyway, without further preamble. I say 5 minutes into preamble. Chapter 1. Present. They call it the present because it's a gift, supposedly. I call it bullshit. Elise Gardner. Even though Elise... Oh! Backstory. See, we're 5 minutes in and I'm still babbling at you. But anyway, backstory. Elise is a TikToker that I follow. So the name was totally inspired by a random TikToker. I took a lot of inspiration, actually, from some of my favorite TikTokers. It's not Elise, the TikToker I follow, but just sort of a nod to that. And one of the characters in this story is her sister, as a matter of fact. The one who's getting married is a social media star. And she is loosely, if y'all are on TikTok, you'll know who I'm talking about. She is loosely a mashup of Call Me Chris and Selena Spooky Boo. Like if you took the two of them and smashed them into one person, that's kind of who the sister is. So, sister is really cool. Just saying, I really enjoyed the sister. I'm bummed we don't get to write her story because she already has her happy ever after. Maybe we'll go back someday and tell her story. But, yeah. Anyway. Let's go to the actual story now. That's 6 minutes and 18 seconds in. All right. Even though Elise planned the moment out in meticulous detail months prior to the event, she never expected to greet her ex-fiancé while covered in a copious amount of her sister's wedding cake. Then again, she didn't have the greatest track history when it came to planning, so she should have expected disaster. Or so she told herself as she shook her wrist to remove a particularly large glob of fluffy confection from the back of her hand. "This isn't what it looks like," she began. Her ex, Jeremy the jerk, arched one perfect brow at her. "I'm not sure what it looks like, so you're right." He extended a hand toward her, but Elise ignored it. She might not have much left, but she still had her pride, damn it. Only slipping once, she managed to make it to her feet, the cake laying globs and chunks all around her, and on the gauzy white curtains that hung from floor to ceiling in the elegant ballroom. She could fix this. Probably. One step at a time, she reminded herself, and headed towards the kitchen at the other end of the ballroom. Jeremy, hands on his stupid, flawless hips, considered the disaster with a speculative expression. "I hope your sister didn't want to get the deposit back on this haul. The curtains alone are going to be expensive as hell to clean." "You saw nothing," she told him, managing to find a broom and dustpan. Grabbing the nearest large garbage can, she dragged it toward the cake mess. "Are we clear?" "You want me to lock the doors?" he asked, and she shot him a look. "To the ballroom?" "I'm assuming you don't want anybody to catch you putting that cake in the garbage," he pointed out. She also didn't think it was a good idea to be locked inside any small space with the one man who ever made her heart race with just a quirk of a smile. But the alternative, getting caught, trumped those fears. "Good idea. Lock 'em." When he tended to the door, she began scooping dustpan loads of cake and stuffing them into the garbage can. The icing, all fluffy white gorgeousness, intricately detailed to match the bride's wedding gown, smeared in long white streaks across the green marble of the floor as she scooped. By the time he returned to her side with a large spatula, she had at least half the cake in the garbage. "Did you at least taste it?" he asked. In response, Elise licked her lips. Since there was a solid amount of cake in her hair and on her face, she got a decent taste. "Vanilla, just like my sister," Elise responded. He scooped a handful of the remaining cake onto the table and gave it a taste. "It isn't half bad," he replied. "It should be way better than half good based on the price tag," Elise said. "I think my parents said she dumped close to $1,000 on this thing." "You mean her fiancé paid that much," he said with a sly look her way. "You know she had him foot the bill for this." "He's your brother," Elise said, tucking a strand of cake-colored hair behind her ear. With a sweeping motion, she shoved the cake platter and remaining cake into the garbage bag. "You'd think he'd be more upset about the cake. We're literally throwing away his money." Using his spatula like a shovel, he industriously scooped more cake from under the table and into the garbage. "I don't think he'd want it in this state, do you?" He gestured at the floor. "I didn't mean to do it," she blurted, furious when her eyes began leaking. "Like, I know Shannon and I have our problems, but..." His hand, clean despite their chore, landed on her shoulder in a comforting way, even if it squished in the cake she wore. Just imagine that. "I didn't think you hurled her wedding cake at yourself intentionally. Did the table break?" It didn't take a genius to figure that out as it sat folded behind them. Blinking back more tears, Elise could only nod. I just had an argument with Shannon, and then I came in here to be alone, so I leaned on the table to collect my composure. Instead, I collected cake. All of it, she admitted. He pulled her into his arms, cake and all. Shh, he murmured. You want to talk about it, or do you just want help cleaning it up? She sniffled, enjoying the feel of his arms for a solid 10 seconds too long before shoving him away. I don't want anything from you, Jeremy. I thought we established that a long time ago. He stared into her eyes. And that is a lie. Furious with him, with herself, with everyone, she dragged the garbage can back toward the kitchen. Look, thanks for locking the doors, but I think I have it from here. She'd begun filling a bucket with water, hot water, when his hand reached past her to turn off the knob. He then swiveled her around to face him. We need to talk, he said. No, we don't, she replied, turning back to her task. His sigh was gusty, but he dug around under the nearby cupboard and came up with some cleaning solution. After dumping a capful into the hot water, he lifted the bucket out of the sink and headed to the bathroom. Elise sighed herself, grabbed a mop, and followed him. I think we can just throw away the tablecloth too, can't we? It's fabric, he replied, taking a mop from her hands. Washable. He then began to mop. The icing globbed and smeared rather than coming up from the floor. She scooped up the tablecloth and returned to the kitchen to stuff it in the sink. After a few minutes of searching, she scored another tablecloth, which she carried with her along with a bottle of cleaning spray and a rag back to the scene of the crime. By the time she returned, he'd managed to get the floor mostly clean, set the folding table back up, and headed back to the kitchen to dump and refill his mop bucket. She knelt and began cleaning the curtains, only to hear him sigh again when he returned. You're getting more cake on the floor. I lost my spot. You're getting more cake on the floor because it's falling off your clothes, he pointed out. Maybe take a minute to clean yourself up before cleaning the room. She spun to face him, her panic and worry transforming to fury in the space between heartbeats. Look, I don't take orders from you! He scooped some icing off her nose and ate it with a satisfied smirk. Wasn't an order, sweetheart. It was a suggestion. Jeremy? She began, ready to unload 10 years worth of fury and frustration on him. Elise? He replied, and then he kissed her. And that is chapter 1. I don't want to read chapter 2 to you because I feel like it gives too much away. But we could look at something else. I'll do a second video. We'll do 2 videos. Let's do that. So this is video number 1.